Hey, Jose and Sadi. Okay, welcome to 11.5. We're going to be continuing to talk about bonds. Now you know how to buy the bonds, but now how does the interest work on the bonds? Okay, this is really good information, especially if you're going to be investing money. Because what you need to understand when you invest money is that the more risk that you take with your money, the more you're going to be rewarded. Okay, the more risk, the more recompensa is possible. But with the more risk, more pérdida is possible as well. Okay, you can lose more. So you can be rewarded more or you can lose more. Okay, so for instance, like let's say you have some money. Like I told you before, the best thing to do is to diversify. That means like let's say you can put into a savings account, certificate of deposit, savings bonds, and stocks. Savings account is the less risky. No one's going to lose your money for a savings account, usually, unless the bank fails. In the United States, though, if the bank fails, the federal government will give you up to $15,000. Okay? So it's very rare that you're going to lose money from a savings account. Okay? So then that means they're only going to pay like what? 1% interest, 2% interest, 3% interest. Certificate of deposit? You can't lose your money in a certificate of deposit, okay? But you do have to wait for a little bit, so you get a little bit higher interest rate than a savings account, okay? Then you have savings bonds. Those are a little more risky, okay? What if the company, you saw the table, sometimes the prices go up, sometimes the prices go down. So that means the interest that you're going to be getting from the savings bond can go up or it can go down. However, the government says that companies have to pay interest on their savings bonds before they pay them on their stocks. So the most risky one is stocks. Whew, it's being risky. You can lose a lot of money. People lost a lot of money in stocks during this pandemic because a lot of the companies' values went down, so their stocks went down and people lost a lot of money. My mom and dad had a lot of their money in a retirement fund. They lost a lot of money. However, it came back up. Okay, my mom worked for like 6 more months than she was planning on working so that the money could go back up, and it did. Okay, so there is risk in the stocks, and then there is reward in that as well. So the more risk, the more reward is possible, but also the more loss. So let's look at the interest paid on bonds. It says bonds usually pay a higher interest rate than a savings account, but are also less secure. Bonds are considered to be less risky than stocks, however, since companies are required by law to pay all interest on bonds before paying interest on stocks. To find the annual interest rate for a bond, listen carefully, multiply the face value of the bond by the interest rate. That's going to give you your annual interest. Use a simple interest formula. Okay, I equals PRT, right? The annual interest rate is given in the bond report. So you'll get a bond report. If you have bonds with a company, you'll get a bond report. The annual interest rate is given in the bond report. The interest is usually sent to the bondholder semi-annually. Okay, so it is something that you're going to be given the interest as you go, not waiting on maturity. There are some bonds where I'm sure you can wait on maturity as well, okay, if you want to keep that money in the investment. To find the annual yield for a bond, which shows the return on your investment, that means how much interest are you going to be getting on that bond each year. Divide the annual interest rate by the selling price of the bond. Okay, that's going to give you your rate on how much you're going to be getting each year in interest from what you paid for that bond. Okay. The annual yield is higher than the annual rate of interest if the bond sells at a discount. The annual yield will be lower if the bond sells at a premium. Okay, that makes sense because if you bought it on a discount, then you're getting more money a year because you already saved money when you bought it, not at face value, right? So look at number 1. Mr. Hall owns a bond having a face value of $1,000 and an annual interest rate of 7 3/4%. Find the annual interest rate and then find the semi-annual payment. Okay, so guys, think about it. I'll do this one here. I could talk it through, but let's do a little bit more visual today, right? You have I equals PRT, okay? Your principal is what the face value is, which is 1,000. The rate was 7.75, so that's 0.0775, right? And it's for 1 year because that's going to be your annual interest rate, okay? When you multiply all that stuff together, you're going to get $77.50. But you're getting semi-annual payments, so you're getting 2 payments a year. So you're going to divide this by what? 2 to figure out what you get for each payment, and that's going to be $38.75. Okay? Look at number 2. $1,000 bond with a quoted price of 95. So remember what that is. 95 is 95% of 1,000, which is 950. Has an annual interest rate of 8. Find the annual yield to the nearest tenth of 1%. Remember, the annual yield is that equation that we have up there, which is the annual interest rate, I'll put the annual I, over the selling price, not the face value, okay? Well, first you have to find your annual interest rate, okay, which is what we just did, I equals PRT. The P is still 1,000 because that's the principal amount, that's the face value, okay? The interest rate was 0.08 times 1. So your annual interest rate is $80. Put on your annual interest is $80, right? Okay, but that is not your annual yield. Your annual yield is that $80 over the selling price, which was $950. Okay, which means that your annual yield is 8.4%. 8.4%. Okay, that 8.4% is bigger than the annual interest rate. Why? Because you bought it on a discount. So you're already like $50 ahead of people that bought it at the face value. Okay, so you just got to use that formula. You got to use both formulas. The I equals PRT for the annual interest, and then the annual interest over selling price of the bond for your yield. What are you actually getting for the year? You're getting more than the annual interest rate because you bought it at a discount. Okay. So number 1, for find the annual interest, your answer is going to be $65. Number 4, find the annual and semi-annual interest for each. That's going to be, annual is 800, so divide that by 2 is 400 for your semi-annual. Find the annual yield to the nearest tenth of a percent. Okay, that's number 7 is 8.2%, because remember what your procedure is going to be is exactly what the model problem number 2 did. Okay? If you have any questions, just let me know. Bye.